So once we returned to the States, Phil set up an arrangement with, and I'm going to blow this up because I think it's worth looking at. This group right here, this is Sinopharm. Sinopharm was the manufacturer, essentially the industry controller of all pharmaceuticals, including traditional
Eastern and Western, yes.
East and Western. And they were a really impressive people. And kind and good. And we introduced them to UVA, and I felt really bad just by the way UVA behaved. UVA folded their arms and acted like, "What are you up to?" Because at this point in time, China was kind of a pariah because of Tiananmen Square. Falun Gong had not happened yet, but there was a lot of bitterness over Tiananmen Square and just in general jingoism against China. I think Samuel Huntington pointed this out that the West just doesn't get the East at all, and I've never seen a better example of that than the way UVA reacted. They came saying like, "Hey, we can bring all of our stuff. We can bring traditional medicine here." And work with you. And then UVA immediately said, well, we have a 250-year-old tradition of Jeffersonianism here to protect. What makes you think that we're going to, share our brand with you? And they said, first of all, we don't really care about traditional medicine. We want access to your rarest herbs so that we can extract compounds for making medicines. And then the Sinopharm people politely replied, "That's not how we do it. We don't extract individual molecules from this stuff. We could do that, but we go by traditional Chinese medicine, which is concocting, mixing these herbs in a very sophisticated way." And it just, it landed flat. So we just moved on, and we brought this guy in, and this is Master Xu, who at that time was the deputy director of the Beijing Wushu Institute. He was one of the all-time grandmasters at that time of several different forms of martial art, many of which were fascinating to me. But Tai Chi, they were really into promoting Tai Chi because they knew its relationship to Qigong. And he was also a Qigong master. And he had a tremendous following in Japan. And but he was the scary guy. He was he wasn't to me. He was actually very nice to me. Um, but boy, to the students in my school, he was hard. He was hardcore. And he was also incredibly nationalistic. And you could tell deep down inside, he was nervous about being in a non-communist environment and mistrusted a lot of what was going on. But I learned a tremendous amount from him. And I think Phil, one day he sat us down in our office at that time, which was over my studio, and he gave us a lecture on what Qigong is. And what I go back to that now. And he said that what Qigong does is it allows a human to collect the background energy that was created with the Big Bang. And I immediately kind of blew that off as just like, okay, the Chinese are like grab bagging stuff for they've gotten from Western scientists. But now I'm thinking, I think the guy was onto something. He was, that gets us, I don't want to get ahead of myself, but that gets into torsion energy. But he gave an entire lecture on that. He explained Qigong to me in a way that took me to another level and allowed me to talk about it in a more sophisticated way. Plus, I learned a tremendous amount about martial art from him. And we took him to meet this guy, George Beller, who was married to Katie Couric's sister, who at that time was a state senator. She had died of tragically pancreatic cancer, but I knew Dr. Beller. I met Dr. Beller because when the book published, suddenly rich people decided I was worth taking a look at. And a wealthy woman who went to the same country club as him studied with me and then went to him and said, "You need to talk to this guy." Beller came over and had a private meeting. with, I think you were in with you, Phil, and me, and he then tasked his business guy to work with us, a guy that completely failed. Um, but Beller seemed very sincere. He wanted to work with us. I took Shu over to meet him. They did a ultrasound on Shu's heart, and Shu was 50 years old at the time. He was a smoker and a drinker, and they said that his heart was like that of a 30-year-old, which I thought was kind of interesting. But at any rate, things went nowhere with Beller. And it really had to do with the internet boom at that time. And the guy's name was Kernahan, got involved in business ventures involving internet businesses that all of which went down in flames in the dot-com bubble. And it was another kind of, again, we were too early. We were early, but we were right. So Shu went back. You know, we couldn't even get the local newspaper to give us the attention that we needed until like a few days before Shu was supposed to leave. They showed up and did an article on him, and that helped. That grew the school a little bit. And nonetheless, we doubled down and we brought Minister Wu rather, sent us another grandmaster. Actually, he was just a professor at this time, and this is Liu Xiaojun, who now is the head honcho of all of Taiji in China. And he was a rising star at the time. And we brought him over. Again, he taught a great deal. And he and I became really good friends. And to this day, we're good friends. And I have here, let's see if I can get the right angle on the camera. This is an insignia that he came up with for an association called the International Society of Chinese Health Practices that he's created over in China. He has an annual conference. Phil and I have been to a couple of them. I've been to three or four.
I
Phil's
was
been
just
to
there
two.
last year at the conference.
Yep, you were there. And so he's thriving and he's in charge of putting up 30,000 Tai Chi centers. And again, they've adopted the 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 term Tai Chi instead of Taiji. Taiji Chan, I went around berating people for years saying, no, it's not Tai Chi, it's Taiji. Taiji Chan, and really emphasized that. And then the Chinese flipped it. Now they're going Tai Chi. So they're doing it as a way to catch, more flies with honey. Okay, you want to call it Tai Chi? Fine. We'll call it Tai Chi, and they can internationalize it all the better. Um, but anyway, these 30,000 centers are going up all over China, and Phil and I both think that they're probably up to something with that eventually is going to involve Qigong. But right now, it's just Tai Chi, heavily promoted. You can see on Facebook now these random videos by the movie star Jet Li. Li Linjie, for those of you who know his Chinese name, is promoting Lu's five-step Tai Chi form, very simple Tai Chi form that they're trying to get all of China to do. We were there on the at the very. We not only were there, well, in some ways, I think we could say we inspired it, that our interaction with them, because what I was doing was trying to simplify a great deal of what is involved with Chinese traditional movement, health practices, and so on. And they just looked at that and they went one better.